enough. You see? And then he goes on, and he said, and then he said to the fathers, all right. Now listen to verse 18, what he said. This is the mentality of this man. He is so inferior, so lost. He feels so bad and horrible about himself, you see. Now, he wants to approach the Father. See? Now, this is his way, how he thinks he's going to approach the Father. See? Same mentality in the Old Testament that we just said. The dead dog mentality. That's how it is. Then he says, verse 18. Now, this is what he thinks. He says, I will arise and go to my Father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. Now, just listen. This is an example of a true heart. Not a pure heart. Not a sinless heart. It is the example of a true heart. Don't lie to yourself. See, a true heart. It's a huge difference. This is what he said. He said, I will stand up and I will go to my Father and I will say that I have sinned. Now we see, but now listen to me. If he stopped there, it would have been okay. But listen, he went further. You see? What he's done so far is good, no problem. And listen to what he's done further. Verse 19. He says, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. You see? Now I tell you something. God, or the Father in this example, has never declared to him, you are unworthy. He's never done it. It was himself who made the decision. Now listen to this one, it's even worse. Because it says verse 17, when he came to himself. Come on, when someone comes to yourself, you think, oh well, I mean, he's got his senses back. He's got a clear mind now. He's got the divine revelation. See? But while he comes to him, he said one thing good and the rest is derailed again. He said, I will go back, good decision, and I will confess my sin. Well, that's enough. But now we went further. This is where the worm and the dead dog mentality comes in. You see? And this is where you act tonight. That's why I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit says unto you tonight, you don't have to be like that. If you approach God with a true heart, not a false heart. Then he says, then he goes on, he says, and then he says, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. In other words, he wants to give away his sonship. The moment when you give away your sonship, you automatically give away the rights that you've got as a son, and you're also giving away the right of access to the Father. See? Because if you are a son in this house, you can go at midnight and you can knock on your father's door. No problem. But the servant cannot do that. See, if you're a son, you've got access 24/7 right through with boldness. So he gave away his free access to the Father. Because he made a decision to be saved. I'm not worthy to be a son no more. And then he went on and he says to the, listen to what he said. He said to the Father, Father, I want you to make me. He says, I want you to make me like one of your hired servants. In other words, this is where the inferiority comes in. In other words, I'm not worthy. I can't be a son no more. And I want you to demote me now. I want you. And this is what he wanted to say to the Father. He dished it up. He said, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is now when you feel about wrong, something that you've done wrong. And then he says, so he wanted to be a servant. And then he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and then he kissed him. And now verse 21. I finished now, don't miss it. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son.